check! It's English O'Clock! Ang pag-aaral ng English upang madaling matutunan, bakit hindi natin simplihan? Halika! Manood at makinig sa English Teacher ni Juan!
Kung bago ka pa lang sa channel na to, huwag kang matakot. I made learning English easy for you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. At pakishare mo na rin sa iba para marami pang mga Juan na gaya mo ang matuto.
Hello there! Handa ka na ba ulit sa isang talakayan? This time, our lesson will focus on the features and purpose of poetry, lyric, narrative, and dramatic poetry. The target learning competency for this video is compose literary texts using appropriate structure. This is the lesson objective. Supply the purpose and features of lyric, dramatic, and narrative poetry. This is the second part of Lesson 6. Sa nagdaang video lesson, we discussed the structure elements of poetry. This time, we're going to discuss the features and purpose of the three kinds of poetry, and those are narrative, lyric, and dramatic poetry. Halika na! Let's start! Let's start with the lyric poetry. Lyric poetry is a genre of poetry that expresses personal emotions, thoughts, and feelings, often from the perspective of a single speaker. Unlike narrative poetry, which tells a story, lyric poetry focuses more on the speaker's inner experience and reflections. It's characterized by its use of musical language, rhythm, and often a focus on a single moment or emotion. Common forms of lyric poetry include sonnets, odes, elegies, and haikus, among others. Lyric poetry serves several purposes and is characterized by a range of features that set it apart from other poetic forms. Here's a breakdown. Purpose of lyric poetry. Number 1. Expression of personal emotion. Lyric poetry is primarily concerned with conveying the poet's personal feelings, emotions, and thoughts. It's an intimate form of writing that allows the poet to explore and articulate their inner experiences. Number 2. Reflection and meditation. It often provides a space for reflection and contemplation, allowing the poet to delve into personal or universal themes such as love, loss, beauty, or nature. Number 3. Evocation of mood. Lyric poems aim to evoke a particular mood or atmosphere. The poet uses language to create an emotional response in the reader or listener. Number 4. Artistic expression. Beyond just sharing feelings, lyric poetry often seeks to demonstrate artistic skill through careful crafting of language, rhythm, and imagery. Features of lyric poetry. Number 1. First-person perspective. Many lyric poems are written from the first-person point of view, using I to create a direct connection between the poet and their audience. Number 2. Emphasis on emotion and subjectivity. The focus is on the emotional experience and subjective thoughts of the speaker rather than on external events or narratives. Number 3. Musicality. Lyric poetry often features musical elements such as rhythm, meter, and rhyme. The structure and sound of the poem can enhance its emotional impact. Number 4. Imagery and figurative language. Vivid imagery and figurative language, such as metaphors and similes, are used to convey feelings and create strong visual and sensory impressions. Number 5. Conciseness. Lyric poems tend to be relatively short and concentrated, focusing on a single moment or emotion rather than elaborating on a broad narrative. Number 6. Form. While lyric poetry can be free verse, many traditional lyric poems adhere to specific forms and structures such as sonnets, odes, or elegies, each with its own set of rules for rhyme and meter. Overall, lyric poetry is a powerful means for poets to explore and communicate their internal worlds, offering readers a glimpse into their personal experiences and emotions. Now let's discuss narrative poetry. What is narrative poem? Narrative poem is the oldest form of poetry and one of the oldest forms of literature. It is used to tell a story. The poet combines elements of storytelling like plot, setting, and characters with elements of poetry such as form, meter, rhyme, and poetic devices. Unlike lyric poetry, which focuses on personal emotions and thoughts, narrative poetry aims to convey a sequence of events and often includes a more structured storyline. The following are the purpose of narrative poetry. First, storytelling. The primary purpose of narrative poetry is to tell a story. This can include recounting historical events, myths, legends, or purely fictional tales. Number 2. Character exploration. It provides an opportunity to explore the lives, actions, and motivations of characters within the narrative, giving readers insight into their experiences and development. Number 3. Entertainment. Narrative poetry often aims to entertain by engaging readers with compelling plots, vivid characters, and dramatic events. Number 4. Moral or social commentary. Many narrative poems are used to convey moral lessons or critique societal norms, using the story as a vehicle for broader themes and messages. Number 5. Historical preservation. Narrative poetry can serve as a means of preserving cultural stories, historical events, and traditions, passing them down through generations. Let's proceed to the discussion of features of narrative poetry. Number 1. Plot. Narrative poems have a clear storyline with a sequence of events. This includes exposition, introduction of setting and characters, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Number 2. Characters. These poems feature characters who play roles in the story. These characters can be complex with distinct personalities and motivations. Number 3. Setting. Narrative poetry establishes a setting where the story takes place. This helps in creating the backdrop against which the events unfold. Number 4. Dialogue. Often, narrative poems include dialogue or direct speech from characters, which helps to develop the story and reveal character interactions. Another feature of narrative poetry is structure. Narrative poems can vary in length and structure, but often follow a consistent rhythm and rhyme scheme. They may use stanzas or verses to break the story into manageable parts. Number 6. Imagery and descriptive language. Vivid imagery and detailed descriptions are used to create a strong sense of place and to bring the story to life for the reader. 7. Point of view. The story is told from a specific point of view, which can be first person, second person, or third person, affecting how the events and characters are presented. And lastly, themes. Narrative poems often explore themes such as heroism, love, tragedy, or adventure, which are woven into the fabric of the story. The following are the examples of narrative poem. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. It is a narrative poem that tells the story of a man mourning his lost love, Lenore, who is visited by a mysterious raven. Another example is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This epic narrative poem recounts the harrowing sea voyage of an ancient mariner and his crew. Narrative poetry combines the artistic elements of poetry with the engaging aspects of storytelling, making it a versatile and enduring form of literary expression. Finally, we have dramatic poetry. Dramatic poetry is a form of poetry that is written in verse and meant to be recited in public or acted out. Dramatic poetry is often in the form of long speeches, either to another actor, the audience, or oneself by musing aloud. Dramatic poetry is a genre of poetry that presents a story through the voices of one or more characters. It is designed to be performed or read as if it were a play, with a focus on character development, dialogue, and dramatic action. Here's an overview of its purpose and features. Purpose of dramatic poetry. Number 1. Character exploration. Dramatic poetry delves deeply into the psyche of characters or the soul of characters, revealing their thoughts, emotions, and motivations through their speeches and interactions. Number 2. Performance. It is often intended to be performed, bringing the characters and their stories to life in a theatrical setting. This performance aspect can enhance the emotional and dramatic impact of the poem. Number 3. Conflict and tension. The genre often explores conflicts and tensions between characters, reflecting on complex human experiences and moral dilemmas. Number 4. Exploration of themes. Dramatic poetry can explore themes such as ambition, power, love, and betrayal through the interactions and conflicts of its characters. Number 5. Moral and philosophical reflection. Like other dramatic forms, dramatic poetry can provoke thought and reflection on ethical and philosophical issues through the characters' experiences and dialogue. Now, these are the features of dramatic poetry. Number 1. Dialogue. Unlike other forms of poetry, dramatic poetry relies heavily on dialogue between characters. The characters' voices drive the narrative and reveal their personalities and conflicts. We also have character development. Characters in dramatic poetry are often well developed, with distinct voices and personalities. Their interactions and speeches provide insight into their motivations and relationships. Number 3. Monologues and soliloquies. Characters may deliver monologues or soliloquies, which are extended speeches that reveal their inner thoughts and feelings to the audience. This can provide a deeper understanding of their internal struggles. Number 4. Conflict and tension. The poem typically includes elements of conflict and tension, either between characters or within a character's own mind. This drives the narrative forward and engages the audience. We also have setting and context. While not as detailed as in narrative poetry or prose, the setting is usually established through dialogue and description, providing context for the characters, actions, and interactions. 6. Dramatic structure. Dramatic poetry often follows a structure similar to a play with acts and scenes. This structure helps in organizing the flow of dialogue and action. 7. Imagery and symbolism. Rich imagery and symbolism are often used to enhance the emotional and thematic depth of the poem. These elements help convey the mood and underscore the dramatic tension. And lastly, number 8, intended performance. Dramatic poetry is crafted with the idea of being performed, so its language and structure are designed to be effective in a theatrical setting. The following are examples of dramatic poetry. First, we have Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. Although primarily a play, this work exemplifies dramatic poetry through its use of dialogue and monologues to explore themes of fate, guilt, and identity. My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. This dramatic monologue reveals the character of a duke through his speech about a portrait of his late wife, providing insight into his personality and the nature of his relationships. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. Though not a play, this dramatic monologue uses the form to explore the inner life and anxieties of the speaker, reflecting on themes of isolation and self-doubt. Dramatic poetry combines the emotional depth and artistic language of poetry with the character-driven storytelling of drama, making it a unique and powerful form of literary expression.
So did you learn something today? Sure ako na hindi ka na nosebleed. If you want more of this video tutorial and learn English in a light speed, huwag kalimutang mag-subscribe at i-turn on ang notification button para updated ka sa mga bagong lessons. Ako ang teacher mo, ang English teacher ni Juan. Class dismissed!